One. Welcome back, beautiful soul family. In part four of chapter four, we're moving into a new level of awareness. Dr. Joe takes us deeper into what it really means to evolve our energy. He explains that each time we consciously tune into our energy centers with intention and awareness, we're refining and upgrading our electromagnetic signature. But it doesn't stop there. Once we begin to generate elevated emotions like love, gratitude, and wholeness, we can start to draw from the quantum field itself. We're becoming creators and we're no longer surviving. This part is a reminder that we are not just physical bodies, we're energy bodies with unlimited access to intelligence, power, and healing. Let's take this wisdom in and activate the next level. This section is called Drawing from Our Energy Field. As we discussed earlier, our bodies are surrounded by invisible fields of electromagnetic energy that are always carrying a conscious intention or directive. When we activate each of the body's seven energy centers, we could say that we are expressing energy out of these centers. Simply put, when we as conscious beings activate a specific energy in each individual center, we simulate the associated neurological plexus to produce a level of mind that then activates the proper glands, tissues, hormones, and chemicals in each center. Once each unique center is turned on, the body emits energy, carrying specific information or intention from it. However, if we keep living in survival and we're overly sexual, overly consuming, or overstressed, by living our lives from the first three centers, we keep drawing from this invisible field of energy, carrying information that surrounds the body, and we are consistently turning it into chemistry. The repetition of this process over time causes the field around the body to shrink. See figure 4.5. As a result, we diminish our light, and there is no energy that carries a conscious intention moving through these centers to create the correlated mind in each. Essentially, we've tapped our own energy field as a resource. That limited level of mind, with its limited amount of energy in each center, will send a limited signal to the surrounding cells, tissues, organs, and systems of the body. The results can produce a weakened signal and lower frequency of energy carrying vital information to the body. Therefore, the lowering frequency of the signal creates dis-ease or disease. We could say that from an energetic level, all disease is a lowering of frequency and an incoherent message. He calls it living in survival. This is very overexposed. I don't know if I can get it to focus. Yep, I don't think I can get it to focus. Oh, did we do it? There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Screenshot. Now I gotta get it back. Get it back. Come on, give me back. Give me back. This why. Okay, I'm probably not gonna do that again on this reading because now that just changed how light I am. So now I need. Let's see. I forgot how to white balance, y'all. Okay, there we go. Wait. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that again, guys. I need you to get the book so that I don't have to keep doing that. But anyways, remember how I said that the lower three energy centers of the body are concerned with survival? So they present, so they represent our selfish nature. They're about using power, aggression, force, or competition so we can survive the conditions in our environment long enough to consume food, to nourish ourselves, and then procreate and keep the species going, as opposed to the upper five centers, which represents our selfless nature and are concerned with more altruistic thoughts and emotions. Nature has made these lower three centers very pleasurable so that we keep engaging the actions related to them and what they represent. For example, having sex, the first center, and eating, the second center, are enjoyable, as is connecting and communicating with others, also the second center. Personal power, the third center, and can be intoxicating, including the success of overcoming obstacles, getting what we want, competing against others and winning, surviving in a particular environment, and pushing ourselves to move our bodies around. You can see then why some people may tend to overutilize one or more of those first three centers, and in doing so, consume more of the field of vital energy and information surrounding the body. For example, an overly sexual person draws extra energy from the field of energy surrounding their first center. A person tapped into shame or guilt who feels victimized, holds on to the emotions of the past, and constantly suffers is consuming excess energy from the energy field surrounding their second center, and so holds on to that energy in that center. An overly controlling or stressed person pulls additional energy from the field surrounding their third center. When our consciousness is not evolving, neither is our energy. And this is why people find themselves stuck when it comes to manifestation. Because when you don't understand the signature that you've been existing in, how your electromagnetic field responds to the quantum field, then you don't really understand where energy is stuck. And it's not something you can fix intellectually. I think this is the problem I've had myself with other, coaches. And it's no knock against anybody. It's just that's where the buck stops. That's the limitation. It's not always about something you can do intellectually. As as Dr. Joe said, or as I talked about in my live from chapter parts 1 through 3, um, you don't want to focus on fixing anything. You want to learn how to tune into how you've been existing so that you can convert that energy. And this next part, he's going to talk about that. It's called the subatomic level. All of this starts at the subatomic or quantum level. So let's discuss how that happens. Take a look at figure 4.6. Um, it's a chart that shows from energy to matter. He says if you take two atoms, each of its own nucleus, and you put them together from to form a molecule, the overlapping of the two circles where they bond is where they're sharing light and information. And because they're sharing information, they're sharing a similar energy that has a particular frequency. What's holding these two atoms together as a molecule is an invisible field of energy. Once these atoms join to form a molecule and exchange information, they will have different physical properties and characteristics, such as a different density, a different boiling point, a different atomic weight, to name a few, than when they were sitting side by side, separated. It's important to note that what is giving the molecule its specific properties as well as holding it into form and structure, into matter, is the invisible field of energy that is surrounding matter. Molecules could not bond without sharing information and energy. If you add another atom, you form yet another different molecule that again has different physical properties and characteristics and a different atomic structure. And if you keep adding more and more atoms, you form a chemical. And there's an invisible field of energy around that chemical that's holding it together in physical form, giving life to that chemical. Those atomic forces are real and measurable. If you take enough chemicals and you put them together, you're going to ultimately form a cell. Excuse me. And the cell also has an invisible field of energy surrounding it and giving life to the cell. The cell is actually feeding off different frequencies of light. It's not molecules and positive or negative charges that are instructing the cell to do what it does. According to the new field of biology called quantum information biology, it's the biophotons we discussed earlier and their patterns of light and frequency that the cell emits and receives that give the instructions. The healthier the cell, the more coherent the biophotons it emits. If you remember from what you've learned so far, coherence is an orderly expression of frequency. The exchange of information via electromagnetic frequencies of light between the cell and this field of energy surrounding it happens faster than the speed of light, which means it happens on the quantum level. To continue, if you put a group of cells together, you form a tissue, and that tissue has an invisible field of unifying, coherent frequency and energy that causes all of the individual cells to work together in harmony, functioning as a community. If you take that tissue and further develop it into a more specialized function, you form an organ. And an organ also has an invisible field of electromagnetic energy. That organ literally receives information from the invisible energy field. In fact, the memory of the organ actually exists in the field. The way this can affect transplant patients is fascinating. I've always heard stories about people who get transplants from other donors, and somehow they start to feel the experiences that the donor themselves had. I think that's what he's going to talk about. Probably the most famous example is the story of Claire Sylvia, who wrote a book called A Change of Heart about her experiences after receiving a heart and lung transplant in 1988. All she knew at the time was that her new organs came from an 18-year-old male donor who had died in a motorcycle accident. After the transplant, the 47-year-old professional dancer and choreographer developed cravings for chicken nuggets, french fries, beer, green peppers, and Snicker bars, none of which were foods she had ever enjoyed before. Her personality also changed. She became more assertive and more confident. Her teenage daughter even teased her about developing a man's gait. When Sylvia eventually tracked down the family of her donor, she discovered the food she had craved after the transplant were indeed the young man's favorites. That's spooky. The vital information was stored in the light field of that organ. The most dramatic story illustrating this involves an 8-year-old girl who, after receiving a heart transplant from a 10-year-old girl, began having vivid nightmares about being murdered. The donor had indeed been murdered, and the perpetrator had not been caught. The patient's mother took her to a psychiatrist who was convinced that the girl was dreaming about the events that had actually occurred. They contacted the police, who opened an investigation using the girl's detailed account of the murder, including information on the time and place of the crime, the weapon, and the physical characteristics of the criminal, and the clothing the murderer was wearing. The killer was identified, arrested, and convicted. So in these cases, that information in the energy field surrounding the transplanted organ changed the expression of the energy field of the individual once the person had the transplant. It's different light and different information mixing with the transplant patient's pre-existing field. The recipient can pick up on that information as memory in the field, and it influences their mind and their body. The energy holding specific information is influencing matter. This is so this is fascinating to me because I'm like, wait, what? Like every organ has its own energy field. Yeah, that's crazy. He says, then when you group organs together, you form a system such as a mucoskeletal, cardiovascular, digestive, reproductive, endocrine, lymphatic, nervous, and immune systems, to name a few. These systems function by drawing information from the invisible field of energy and consciousness that surrounds them. And when you put all the systems together, you form a body that also has an invisible field of electromagnetic energy surrounding it. And that vital electromagnetic field of light is who we really are. So this just goes to show that like every person, every single part of your body was not a mistake. It's what makes you who you are. It's what creates your entire ecosystem of how you show up, how your personality evolves. Like the divine was not playing when he created each and every one of us to embody in this 3D reality. That's just like, just to even think about how down to the specific atom, every single thing has its own energy signature, and it makes a difference in how the whole presents. And it also makes sense why when a person gets sick and one particular organ or area gets worked on, other things in the body might start to go awry, or might go left, because we are entire beings. We're not just compartmentalized beings. And most doctors don't know the whole anatomy. They just know the area that they studied. So it just speaks volumes to why some of this stuff feels incomplete, and why Dr. Joe's teachings just helps crystallize things and really helps people tap into our abilities. I'm very grateful for this work. He says, now back to the hormones of stress. As I mentioned earlier, when you're in survival mode and you're drawing too much from this invisible field of energy to turn it into chemistry in your physical body, whether you're oversexed, overeating, overstressed, or all at once, this energetic field around your body diminishes. That means there's not enough energy or light surrounding the body to give the proper instructions to matter for homeostasis, growth, and repair or healing. When that occurs, these individual centers no longer receive and process or express energy, and they no longer produce a healthy neurological mind to send the necessary signals to the associated parts of the body where these centers innervate. Since that energy with a conscious intent moving through or activating neurological tissue creates mind, the energy centers diminish in the expression of the minds to regulate the cells, tissues, organs, and systems of the body because there's no energy moving through them. The body begins to function more like a piece of matter without proper coherent energy of light and information. Those mini brains become incoherent, just as our brain becomes incoherent. In addition, when the brain is incoherent and compartmentalized because of the hormones of stress, that incoherent brain sends a very incoherent message, like static on a radio, down the central nervous system to each of the plexuses of neurons that have to do with communicating with the body. And when these mini brains receive incoherent messages, then they send an incoherent message through the organs, tissues, and cells in each area of the body that's related to each one of these centers. This in turn affects the hormonal expression and nerve conductivity going to different organs and tissues and cells in the body. And this incoherence begins to create dis-ease or imbalance. The result is that when these individual brains become incoherent, each corresponding area of the body becomes incoherent. And when they don't work well, we don't work well. Whew, that was a lot, but it was very insightful. Um, in the next part, we'll go even deeper beyond the physical and into the full process of blessing our energy centers. So, yeah, I'll see you in the next video, guys.